As requested, I have the frame data comparison for the Aspinall versus Jones matchup. I will go over those numbers briefly and then get into some other interesting points of discussion. If you haven't watched the last video and don't know what frame data is, then just skip to the next section. As discussed in my last video, we know Aspinall likes his 1s and 2s, often throwing overhands and tight hooks to get around and inside his opponent's guard. His jab looks to be about frame 8 on average, his right hand sits at about frame 9, and the wider and more hook-esque these punches are, the closer they get to frame 10. Aspinall has only thrown a few uppercuts against Spivak and Arlovsky. He throws these at frame 8, but only throws them inside the phone booth. His right elbow is frame 9 on average. Okay, on to Aspinall's kicks. His leg kick hits on frame 16, his teep is frame 16, and his head kick lands on frame 22, and his rear knee lands on frame 16. Now let's see how he stacks up to Jones's heavyweight numbers. First thing to note, John heavily favors his left hand. He has a very smooth frame 9 left hand jab in orthodox, and a frame 10 cross when in a southpaw stance. He throws his left hook at frame 12. John's right hand seems to be slower by about 1 or 2 frames, though he rarely throws his right jab in southpaw, opting instead to hand fight his opponent's lead hand. Now onto John's kicks. His teep hits frame 17, leg kicks frame 15, his head kick is frame 20, his spinning back kick is frame 18 but is heavily telegraphed with the spin. However, he does use a spinning back fist as a mix-up, which masks the move from being read. We don't have John's oblique kick or body kick data as he hasn't thrown those in a heavyweight bout thus far. Many viewers believe that the frame data of Tom's hands was an inaccurate representation due to the fact that Tom gets so close to his target when punching, and thus we don't know his true, fully extended punch data. But that's the thing, Tom always closes the distance to the target on the feet to cut down on any extra frames needed for fully extended punches. Tom's movement is integral to his speed, so the notion that we have to add frames to find this elusive, fully extended range seems impractical. Why would we separate his footwork from his hand speed if he doesn't separate the two? Instead, it's much easier to say Tom has an 8-frame jab at short range, whereas looking at Jones, we can say Jones has a frame 9 jab at long range. Tom and John are playing two very different games. John is a zoner, meaning his primary goal is to control the space between himself and the opponent, forcing his opponent into unfavorable positions, so of course his strikes will be fully extended. Tom is a rushdown fighter. His style is aggressive, fast-paced, with his goal being to close the distance and overwhelm his opponents with relentless pressure and powerful combos. Tom is not trying to outrange his opponents and therefore is not trying to leverage his range, but rather he tries to leverage his movement, speed, and power combination. Tom rarely has the reach advantage, so he has to get to the inside and is one of the best in the world at doing this. So depending on where the striking takes place, we can map out a clear advantage. At long range, John will outland Aspinall, and at short range, we can expect Tom to outland John and possibly knock him out. Let's talk more about movement. Superior movement has always been the key to the John Jones matchup. Here's an explanation. Jones always has the reach advantage over his opponents and is the best in the world at leveraging that advantage. He does this by throwing his quickest and rangiest options: teeps, oblique kicks, and stick jabs. These are all tools John uses to create space between him and his opponent, keeping his opponents from getting in on him. Any one of these options can halt the forward momentum of his opponents, keeping them at John's preferred range, where he can hit you but you can't hit him. In fact, John does this so well that he becomes the aggressor, the one fighting on the front foot, for the majority of his fights, with the exception being the Cormier fights. This is notable because it should not be the case. The man with the shorter reach, in theory, should be the one pressuring and moving forward. However, since we know that Jones will be throwing tons of shots down the middle to leverage his range, cutting angles is a great way to avoid the straight options and close the space to get in on Jones. Reyes did this the best and outpointed Jones for the first 3 rounds of their fight. Dominic Cruz, commentating that fight, says, "You see John committing to those kicks and Reyes is hitting the angles. If John commits too much and Reyes hits that angle, it's going to be tough for John."
His reach was a problem, but I figured out how to nullify it by moving in with my athleticism off angle.
However, this constant movement can be taxing. Always cutting angles with big explosive steps and bouncing in between Jones's kicks is cardio intensive and is exactly why Reyes and other fighters who have had success against Jones in early rounds have gassed out in the championship rounds. Jon's style of zoning means he can get away with using less movement due to his methodically paced long-range striking, which ultimately preserves his gas tank, similar to the style of Sean Strickland. With that being said, Jones at heavyweight is less mobile than ever, meaning that outmaneuvering him will work even better. If you have seen Jones at light heavyweight and then watched the Stipe fight, you can see a night and day difference between Jon's movement. Where light heavyweight Jones had bounce and seemingly glides on the canvas out of danger, heavyweight Jones seems stiff, stationary, and plods around the octagon. Aspinall, on the other hand, has ridiculous movement for his size. One of the reasons for this is how these fighters distribute weight. Jones weighed in for the Stipe fight at 237.5 pounds and has a noticeable gut, displaying that his cardio cannot be top-notch. Tom is a lean 251 pounds. That's a 13.5 pound difference and a huge advantage for Tom. Jon's skeletal structure looks great for the weight at 205, but looks like a wet sweater on a flimsy hanger at heavyweight. Ironically, Johnny Bones Jones's bones might be his undoing. Jon's age is another factor that must be considered. Coming up on 38 years of age, Jon is nowhere near his prime, whereas Aspinall is, and movement seems to be one of the first things to go as an athlete ages. Another thing to note is that Jones is not comfortable dealing with heavy pressure. While Jones does a fantastic job of keeping his opponents at range, the times his opponents blitz in, he proves to be very hittable. Jon does what so many MMA fighters do as a defensive option when under fire, which is simply backing up. He usually does this with his arms fully extended in order to manage the space, usually trying to control his opponent's head, which is why we see so many eye pokes. This is where the fighters with the shorter reach can thrive if they stick with Jones as he retreats and opt for combos. In the Stipe fight, Stipe's corner actually gave him sound advice telling him to fill the gap, letting Stipe know to not let up as Jones looks for space where he can reset back to neutral. And Stipe did have a few moments of success. In fact, here are 3 exchanges from the Stipe fight which, if Tom were in Stipe's place, a likely finish would have occurred. The openings are there to blitz in due to Jones's lack of combo game. In fact, Jones didn't throw a single combo in the 3 rounds he had with Stipe. A fighter like Aspinall who isn't afraid to trade on approach will have success fighting Jones because once he gets past that single option from Jones, he can enter the pocket and get to work. Aspinall is incredible at getting around the arms of his opponents, and all he needs is 1 or 2 successful entries to KO Jones. Jones does have a solid left elbow counter and counter left hook, but I doubt those will be able to crack Tom's chin or keep him away. Also, in every comment section concerning the Jones versus Tom matchup, the Jones fans will always state that Jones will target Tom's right leg that underwent surgery with oblique kicks. That is Tom's rear leg in his orthodox stance. Jon Jones has targeted his opponent's rear leg with oblique kicks a total of 0 times in his UFC career. So let's put that assumption to bed right now. All bias aside, Jones could maybe leverage his wrestling if he does in fact have superior wrestling. But given Jones's shape and weight disadvantage, even his wrestling might fail him, especially his Greco-Roman wrestling, which he was even struggling to use against Stipe. Clinching and using upper body wrestling has always been Jones's second layer of defense. Jon could clinch up and throw around light heavyweight guys when he was in his prime and on steroids, but we're talking about an explosive athlete who has 50 pounds on those guys. Jones has to be doubtful that he can control Aspinall. Jones will need to time a takedown as Tom steps in like he did against Gane and finish him via sub, ground and pound, or grind him out for 5 rounds. Tom does present a big target for Jones, so Jones could hurt him with teeps to the body to slow him down early, but that would require a lot of volume from Jon, and he will need to mix in combos to earn respect. These are the only ways I see Jones winning, and they seem pretty far-fetched. Tom can win by leveraging his superior movement, cutting angles, and exploding in on Jones in between those single shots that John loves to throw. He can easily get John going backwards, keep the pressure on, and KO him. Tom can use his movement to tease the kicking range of Jones in order to draw out Jones's options. Quite simply, Jones has never fought a fighter as complete as Tom Aspinall. The size, the movement, the hand speed, the power, the grappling. Jones knows that it is likely he will get KO'd inside of 2 rounds and will avoid this fight at all costs. It's not impossible for Jones to win, but it will be very hard. I'm giving this matchup 70-30 in favor of Tom Aspinall.